I used to think that working hard and providing for my wife and kids was enough. But one day, I realized the woman I loved was no longer the same. Did I do something wrong? Or was I the one who ruined her life? This is a true story about a marriage slowly going cold. After noticing the growing distance and coldness between my wife and me, I started reflecting on the journey we'd taken. I'm far from perfect, but I've always tried to be a responsible man, a husband, a father, even a good son-in-law. I didn't come from a privileged background, and neither did my wife. That's why I carried a strong determination to build a better life for our family. At one point, I was working 2 full-time jobs while finishing a second bachelor's degree, and later earned a master's in STEM. I did it all in hopes of getting a better job and more stable income. At the same time, I paid for my wife's education so she could pursue her dream career in healthcare, a field with strong earning potential and job security. I never complained, nor do I regret any of the sacrifices I made. I did it because I loved her and wanted her to have the future we once dreamed of together. When our kids came along, she decided to pause her career and stay home. I understood and supported that decision, even though it added more pressure to our finances. Still, I kept going, working day and night, building our home because I thought if I stayed strong, she and the kids would be safe and happy. What I didn't expect was that all those efforts, rather than making her feel loved, seemed to become the very reason she felt abandoned in her own life. Although she had a solid degree and could earn a good income, she chose to stay home full-time after having our kids. I respected that. Being a mother is a demanding and noble role, especially with 2 young kids just 2 years apart. I always thought, that's okay. If you're happy, I'll take care of everything else. And that's exactly what I did. Those early years weren't easy. I was juggling grad school, full-time work, and supporting the household on one income. My wife stayed home, taking care of the kids and the house. I knew how exhausting that could be. So, when my career stabilized and I started making over $150,000 a year, not including bonuses, I immediately hired a daytime nanny to ease her burdensome mean to help out while one child was in school and the other still at home. I thought having help around the house, with her mother also supporting, would free up some time for her to rest, pursue hobbies, anything. But to my surprise, she didn't seem interested in doing anything. She'd often wake up at 10 a.m., cook something light, then spend most of the day scrolling her phone or shopping online. I didn't expect her to jump back into a career right away, but I couldn't understand what was happening. Maybe giving up her career made her feel lost, or maybe, deep down, she felt like she lost herself, and somehow, I was the one who pushed her there. I began to feel a growing disconnect, not just in words, but in the way she looked at me, the way she moved around me. Despite all my efforts to support her, the silence between us started to feel heavier. It wasn't just exhaustion anymore, something deeper was wrong. I don't blame her for changing. Anyone feeling trapped between motherhood and lost identity might shut down. But what broke me was how, every time I tried to share my struggles, she dismissed them. If I said I had a hard day at work, she'd say, "At least you get to leave the house." If I mentioned my feet hurting from work travel, she'd respond, "Try cooking with a toddler clinging to you all day." My pain, my exhaustion, none of it ever seemed to matter compared to hers. I wasn't asking for praise or gratitude. I just wanted to be seen, just as simple. Sounds like you had a rough day. But instead, I found myself pushing down my feelings, bottling them up to protect her from what I was going through. Eventually, I stopped turning to her altogether. I'd hug our dog, whisper my thoughts to it, because at least the dog listened without judgment. I was in emotional survival mode, feeling unloved, like I no longer had a place in a relationship that once meant everything. And worse, I began to believe that maybe I was the reason she had become this way. As I bottled up my emotions, I started looking more closely at our daily lives, and I realized I was carrying almost everything on my shoulders. I wasn't just the financial provider. I handled all the budgeting, paid every bill, household, personal, hers, even my mother-in-law's medical bills and car payments. I managed our home maintenance, the cars, the pets, everything on top of my demanding job managing global teams. I didn't do it because I wanted control. I did it because she said she was too busy. And yet, while I balanced meetings, deadlines, and financial responsibilities, the same person who claimed to be overwhelmed was sleeping in, scrolling, and shopping. I wasn't asking her to repay me or take over. I just wanted the smallest form of recognition, a thank you, a hug, a few kind words. But those things slowly disappeared from our marriage. The harder I tried, the more invisible I became. The more I gave, the less I seemed to matter. And that's when I started asking myself, am I just an ATM to her? A free live-in helper? Do my sacrifices even matter if the person I'm doing it for doesn't seem to value me? Over time, I stopped opening up to her out of spite, but because I couldn't take the rejection anymore. It wasn't that I stopped loving her. It's that every time I let her in, she made me feel weak for needing comfort. She told me I was lucky to get away for work while she was stuck in the house. So I learned to shut my mouth, smile, and pretend I was fine. Once, after a grueling work week, I said, "I'm really tired." She looked at me and said, "Tired? Try staying up all night with the kids." In that moment, I knew my pain wasn't welcome in this marriage. She forgot that I, too, am human, that I can be strong for everyone and still need to be held once in a while. At night, we sleep in the same bed like strangers. No goodnight kisses, no warmth. I find more comfort in my kids' hugs than in her presence. I whisper things to the dog I can't say to my wife. Part of me wonders if I'm just weak, but the other part knows it's not weakness. It's loneliness. It's emotional starvation. I don't need her to praise me or worship me. I just want a hug, a soft look, a quiet "you're doing a good job." But that simple gesture hasn't come in a long time. Little by little, I stopped feeling like I was in a marriage. It's more like we're roommates, raising kids under one roof, but emotionally living separate lives. She still enjoys the stability, the financial support, the help, the comfort, but I get nothing back. Just emptiness. I don't blame her for being tired or choosing to stay home. What breaks my heart is that she seems to have given up on everything, not just her job, but our relationship too. I feel invisible. Worse, my sacrifices have somehow become the reason she feels robbed of her life, her freedom, her future. Maybe my mistake was believing that working hard and taking care of everything would bring us happiness. But love doesn't survive on responsibility alone. It needs connection, empathy, appreciation. I used to be a devoted husband, a loving father. Now I'm just a man trying to survive the silence and sadness of a marriage that no longer feels like home. I don't even know where I went wrong, or if anything can be fixed. I'm not looking for pity or praise. I just want one small thing from the woman I've always loved. To look at me and say, "Thank you for not giving up." But maybe, in her eyes, I'll always be the man who ruined her life.